Hi, I'm Stefan, the BMW DIY guy, and I want to show you how you can install a Stage 3 Plus Soundskins install of sound matting into your car. All right, y'all, so let's talk about the project a little bit before we do it. Now, hopefully you've had a chance to see my Stage 1 through Stage 3 installs of the Soundskins product into my M2 Competition and the dramatic difference that made in that car. I mean, it brought the sound floor down by an entire 8 decibels, which is really pretty amazing and has improved both ride noise, but the sound quality of my speaker system and my upgrades in that car is just dramatically better. I mean, it's just night and day. Well, I want to do a Stage 3 Plus in this classic E53 X5. Now, how can we make it any better? Well, Stage 1 are the sound rings that go all around, and we're going to install those. Stage 2 is going to be where we replace the vapor barriers with the Soundskins Pro product all the way through. We're going to do that. Stage 3, we're going to layer underneath all the carpets, front seat, back seat, all the way back into the storage area, and that's going to make a huge difference. But we're going to go one stage further today. Now, the only way you can get better from there is with the Soundskins Classic. Now, the big difference between the Pro and the Classic is that the Classic has a metal backing on it and is much more weather resistant. Now, weather resistant, why would you want that? Well, because we're going to do it on the inside of the doors. So you've got your door, your outer door skin. We're going to layer the Soundskins Classic against the inside of your doors. And then there'll be the Soundskins Pro for the vapor barrier. So you're going to have a double baffle throughout. So we're going to have the rings, we're going to have the Pro, we're going to have all of the inside cabin bowl, and then we're going to have a double layer through the door. And it's going to make a tremendous difference. Now, in this car where you're really, you take longer drives, you really want to enjoy the sound quality of your speaker system, this is going to make a tremendous difference. So I really want to walk you through this whole process. Now, keep in mind, these guides can be used for really pretty much any car. So some of the guidance today is going to be obviously specific for this X5, but I'm going to add in other points that were really, you could do this to just about any possible car. And there's some really loud cars out there. If you check out Soundskins, they make some pre-made and prefab kits for some different models, including some of the things like the Jeep Gladiator, which is notoriously loud. If I owned a Jeep, I would absolutely do this. And I've owned a Jeep in the past. So let's go ahead and jump into this project. I'm going to show you how to do it. And we're going to walk through it. I'll show you how to do your doors. I'm going to show you how we're going to do the floors and all the way throughout. So let's get started and jump into it. All right, so as we're going to be doing the whole car today, there's some prep work that we're going to want to do in advance. Now, the age of this particular car, we actually don't have airbags in the seats, but I'm going to treat it like we do, and I'm going to give you advice like we do, because if you have airbags in your seats, you have to be very, very careful when you unplug your seats. We're going to be taking both front seats out. We're going to be taking our door cards off and everything else. So there's some prep work you can do to get the whole car ready and then dig into all the rest. Now, as we go through this, I'm only going to show, for example, one door card at a time. And I'm going to do one front door card and one rear door card. And you can assume how the rest is going to go exactly the same. Now, some of the advice today also is going to be obviously very, very BMW specific here in the C53. But there's no reason why you couldn't use this advice for for another car or a similar car, because the process is going to be essentially the same. Okay, so as we look at our seats, one of the things you're going to want to do with power seats is your bolts in the front. They have front and rear bolts. So you're going to want to be able to run your seat forward and back as you work through it. So you can't unplug your battery yet. But you're going to want to do that before you actually unplug the seats themselves. So in this particular case, we've got a cover over the top of our posts. So I'm just going to use a screwdriver and pull that out. Now, your various bolts that you have to hold your seat down is going to be different in every car. In my M2C, we actually had big like T30 or T40 Torx bolts. In this case, it's a big nut that holds them down. So go ahead and pull the covers all the way around, run the seats back, pull those covers off, run the seats forward, pull those covers off, and pull the bolts all the way around. Don't unplug your seats yet, because we're going to want to unplug the battery. I'll show you how to do that next. Okay. All right, so in this case, as you can see, we've got 16mm nuts. And they come off really easily. And when we do the install, I'll have the proper torque values for you so you can put these back down properly. Like I said, in this case, we've got nuts. On the other car, I've got bolts. So then go ahead and run everything forward to be able to get to the back. And then at that point, your seat's loose. Don't unplug the cable on your seat yet. We're going to go to the back and we're going to unplug the battery after this. Once we go ahead and take, as you can see here, I've still got the covers in place. I'm going to pull these off and then we can take the seats out. All right, so here we are back in the trunk of the X5. Now, again, every car is going to be different. More modern cars are going to be different. For example, most of the time in more modern BMWs, your battery is usually over here on the right side. You'll pull a cover down and then you can pull the negative post off your battery like I did in my M2C. In this particular case, the battery is underneath your spare tire and under the board here. So I pulled the board out and I pulled my spare tire out, and it's even actually under this complete cover. So if you're following these directions for an X5, an E53 X5, you're going to want to take the 10mm bolts here, here, and here all the way around. You're going to take those out, and then this cover will lift. There's some extra components in here, which is fine, but it'll allow you to get your battery underneath there, and you'll pull your negative post once you've got your seats reset back in the right place. Now, again, I really want to emphasize how important this is. This car, it is not as important because there are not airbags in the front seats. But in more modern cars, you're going to have airbags all the way throughout. And if you unplug your seats while it still has power, there's an extremely good chance you're going to get an airbag warning when you turn the car back on or you plug them back in. And those airbag warnings are extremely hard to clear. You're going to have to either have the right tools or take it to the dealership to get that done, and that's a huge hassle. So go ahead and unplug your battery. My seats are in a neutral position here, kind of both front and back. We had 16mm nuts in front, 16mm bolts in back. Those came out. Now the seats are just sitting here loose. Now, in addition, when we look here underneath, and this plug has pretty much been the same since just about forever on BMWs. Now, I'm not going to undo it yet, but right here you can see the plug, and this has a horse collar on it that we're going to lift, and then the plug will come out. But I'm going to unplug my battery first, and then you're going to have the really unique discovery of what's underneath your seats. I bet you these seats haven't been out since it was manufactured, so who knows what we're going to be able to find here underneath the seats. Now, what you're going to want to do in this case, I'm going to take them out the back. I'm going to lift them up off these front posts, settle it back into the back seats, and then carefully lift and work their way out. All right, so both seats are out, as you can tell. So a couple of things here. Now, in this particular car, the E53 X5, the seatbelt stays attached to the seat. So in other cars, your seatbelt may attach down to the floorboards or similar. So in this case, the seatbelt's long enough that I can just feed the seat out and get it up and out of the way and not have to take the seatbelt off. Now, you can also tell that the seats are out completely. This is a great opportunity to clean underneath. I know I always do. This may sound a little funny, but I actually kind of don't mind taking my seats out. I like the ability to be able to clean underneath. So vacuum up completely, make it a nice, neat, and clean space to work in. I might even get some carpet cleaner. But as you can tell, those are out. Now, the back seat is even easier. So we're going to take the back seat base out. And in this and just about every BMW, since for the last 30 years, all you need to do is just grab the base and pull. And you can tell it starts to come up and away. Now, this whole piece will come up, the seat belts will feed down through, and this whole piece will come up and out. And then you can clean under there too and get it all nice and clean. So then your front seats are out, your back seats are out, and then I'm going to show you how to take your door cards off. So one quick addition that's a little bit different for this E53 X5 is you can tell the center seat belt actually goes down through the seat and secures actually down here to the base, and that's going to be a 16mm bolt. So go ahead and take that bolt out, and as you can tell, man, it's a mess underneath here. But chances are this has probably never been up. It's not been as for as long as I've owned the car. It's a bit of a mess. So we've got some plastics that are pretty beaten up and broken. So clean up as appropriate. We're going to get down to bare metal under here as well. So I'll take this opportunity to clean up any of the mess, take out any of that broken plastics. The one other thing you're also going to want to keep in mind that if you do have heated rear seats, which this one does, make sure to unplug them before you pull away too much further. Okay, so undo the seat belt, unplug your seat, take your seat base out and set it aside. It's a good opportunity to clean up and clean your seat base as well. Okay, so one quick touch base before we move on to the door cards. As you can see, this is all cleaned up and really nice. There are these big foam blocks that fit down into the section. You just grab them and pull them out. There's something really satisfying about getting that all cleaned up. I mean, you saw it a second ago with all of that old rubber matting that had aged and gotten brittle. So it looks really nice now. So front seats are out, as you can tell completely. Back seat is out. And then as well, also back in the tire well, I took this opportunity to vacuum that all out and get it all cleaned up because we're going to be putting sound matting all through this entire cabin basin. But more importantly, let's go ahead and jump into the door cards. So The door cards are really not that hard. There's really a couple of steps to get them taken out. And again, I'm going to give you the specifics for this E53X5. Your car is going to be a little bit different if it's not this model, but they're all pretty much similar. Okay, so in this case, we're going to be taking the door handle trim off to go ahead and take a couple of extra screws out here. There's some trim that we're going to take off, and then we're going to take all of the plastic rivets and get the door card off. But let me go ahead and get the handle trim off, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so specifically for the E53, there's a couple of things we're going to have to do differently. And the rear door and the front door are very, very similar, with the exception of the front door. It has a little airbag where it has a little plastic cover right here. This is airbag. You'll have a bolt right here that you want to pull that cover off, and I'll show you that in just a moment. But they're very similar in design. So first of all, you use a plastic trim tool to get underneath the grip here. Your grip will come off, and then you'll have a T30 bolt right here. You also have another T30 right here. Then, in addition, you want to get your plastic trim tool very carefully under your trim. And if you have this wood trim, be very careful and gentle when you pry up on it, because it can crack, and that would be a bummer, okay? It's on pressure posts here through the end and a hook on this side. So you don't want to pry up on this side. You actually want to very gently work your way down. And as you can see, this is loose. There's one more post right here because I wanted to show it to you with it on. But you can see the pressure posts. But this also covers another T30 right here that you're going to take out. And you've got a mixture of T30s in some places and T20s in the others. So make sure that you have both tools available. And then just work this the trim off. And then go ahead and take all those bolts out. Then we're going to use our plastic trim tool under the edge of your door card. Now, all the way around your door card are these big plastic rivets. So you'll want to work a plastic trim tool in. Don't use a metal tool. Work it in and gently pry until one of those rivets pops loose. And then what I usually do will work my hands and fingers in all the way down underneath the under arc to work my way around to work it off. That'll work the rivets all the way off, and then you'll just ease it off the top. But there's probably a lot of instruction for one place. So let me get this trim off. Let me get you the bolts out. Then I'll show you what it's like to take the rest of the door card off. Okay, so once you have all of your bolts out, go ahead and, like I said, work a plastic trim tool around underneath. If you've never had your door cards off or your car's brand new, these plastic rivets, which I'll show you in a second, can be very, very loud as they pop free. But work your tool in, pry it free, get your fingers up underneath, and just be gentle on your door card. These can flex and break, okay? So pull carefully away so the bottom comes free, as you can see, and then the top comes up and off, just like that. Now, this is the point where I kind of need three hands to be able to film and show at the same time, because on the inside of your door card are all going to be your speaker wires and your connection for your door pull and everything else like that. So you want to take it and tip it out. Your door pull is this gray cable. It's called a Bowden cable that you pull out and away, and I'll show it to you in just a second. And then you're going to have any other speaker cables or anything else you have on the inside of your door, and you're going to want to reach in and start unplugging all those. You've got your lights, you've got your speakers. So once you can get all of those unplugged, go ahead and take your door card safely and set it aside. All right, so a couple of things here. Now that the door is off, and as you can see with the door card completely off, we've got our Bowden cable right here, which I was trying to describe. This is what is your door pull. You've got your door lighting, any of your speakers, your door switches, all of those things are unplugged. Now, here's where you actually get an extra benefit from replacing your vapor barrier while we're here. Now, your vapor barrier is intended to keep water from the outside from getting to the inside that can leak through your doors and into your cabin. And there definitely are some models that can be a major issue. But if you've got an older one, this can get brittle. But also in this case, as you can see, it's peeling away. And it's also kind of, and down here, which I never realized in this car, it's torn. So I'm actually lucky in this case. I don't have a water leak in this door. So what we're going to do is we're going to very carefully take the vapor barrier off intact, because we're going to use it as a template to cut the new one. Now in this particular case, we're going to match like for like, where where the Bowden cable comes through, where this clip comes through. We're going to make the same inserts so those can come through when we install the new one. But what we really want to do is get this off and in one solid piece. Now, you have all this butyl tape that goes around the outside. You can always use a heat gun to heat it up a little bit, but I actually find when you're cutting it off, it's actually a little bit easier to work with when it's cold. You're going to want to take a sharp X-Acto knife and just work your way through and cut as much of the butyl tape as you can to keep this intact. Now I've got this big split, so I'm going to have this extra piece here, but I want to get it off as intact as possible because this is going to be my template when I replace it. So go ahead and take a sharp work knife, work your way around, slowly cut the butyl tape away. Don't hit any of your wiring or anything else as you do it, to go ahead and get your vapor barrier off in one solid piece. Okay, now as we do this door, you can go ahead and do all of the rest. They're going to be exactly the same with just a couple of small exceptions. Now in this car, here in the front, like I said, there's a bolt that's directly behind this cover, so you're going to want to pull that off. We'll pull our trim off. We'll pull our trim off here, back our door card off, and unplug everything just like we did for all the rest. But it's going to be the same all the way around, so we can actually get to the exposed door and exposed vapor barriers. All right, so here we are looking at the front door. I just wanted to make sure you had a good example of this as well. There's a couple of minor differences here in the front door in this E53 X5 that I wanted to point out. So first of all, you actually have an airbag right here that fits back into a concave indentation. And we're gonna wanna make sure that that fits well when we put that back into place as being a safety device. So we're gonna treat that a little special as we go through this. You can also tell the vapor barrier is cut off, and like I said a second ago, this is really extra good work to do because I hadn't realized how badly my vapor barrier had separated. This one didn't have any tears in it, but it was separated all over the place. Now, you can also see the track of the previous butyl tape here all the way around. I just leave it into place because the Soundskins matting sticks to this really, really well, and I don't see a reason to take it off. I did have a big ugly lump of it right here for some reason, so I just shaved it down to make sure that it was clean. Now, when we cut the replacement, my stage 2, when we cut the replacement for the vapor barrier, I will talk about this a little bit more, but we're actually going to improve upon the original design a little bit by extending out into more of the door. But before we get there, let's talk about the Soundskins Classic, that stage 3 plus sort of approach, where we're going to be lining the inside of the door with the Soundskins Classic. Now, a couple of things. First of all, as you can tell, we're not going to be able to get into it as cleanly as other places throughout the entire door or through the vapor barrier. There's a lot of strut bars and other pieces in here, so we're really going to have to custom cut each piece. You're going to cut off a big sheet of the Classic, kind of fit it up in here, see how it all fits, and then cut it to shape and adhere it down. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a rag and clean off all of the inner surfaces the best I can throughout the inside of the door and make sure that it's dry, so I get a good adherence of the Classic throughout the door. But I wanted to kind of talk you through that process before you did it. I'm going to show you piece by piece as I do it, as I go through. But the next stage really is going to be that Soundskins Classic on the inside of the doors. So let me wipe all the inside down, and then I'm going to get the roll of the Classic, and then we're going to start fitting it all into place. All right, so with my tape measure, what I found in my door, and your door may be different, that the void space that I can easily get back into to apply the Soundskins Classic is 25 inches tall by 29 inches wide before I hit any structure that I'm not going to want to interfere with. So that roll, the roll of Classic, is 24 inches wide. So in many ways, that's just perfect. And so I cut myself a 24 by 29 inch piece. Now, there's no way that I'm going to be able to get a 24 by 29 inch piece in through this space without folding it really badly. So what I've done is I've cut it off in pieces. So I'm just going to take it and test fit. So I slide it back here, back behind that support structure, get it up into the door. And now in my case, as you can see this scalloped bar, I'm not going to overlay that bar in this case because I don't want to interfere with my door handle. But I can take the whole piece and just slide it over. As you can see exactly where it's going to fit into place. It's going to fit in very, very nicely like that, up against the door jamb as best as I can get it. And then I can also take and I can see where the curve of this back piece is, and I can mark it with a pencil, and I'll cut that curve out so it fits that perfectly. And then I'm going to do it piece after piece after piece and piece it all in, all the way across the skin of the door, each piece up against each other with no gap possible, fit it all in really, really nicely. Now, the other thing you can do is with these pieces, and you're going to learn to do this as you go, is how to peel off the backing. Because if you peel off all the backing in one shot, then it can stick to other things as you're trying to put it in. So what I usually do is I'll peel back an edge, and then I'll put it back into place, and then I'll slowly from behind reach behind and peel the backing off as I apply it, pressure, and put it all down into place. And then use the roller that you can get and roll it out really, really nicely. Make sure you have a good clean adherence to the door and work through all of those pieces. So let's get this first piece set and I'll show you all the rest. All right, so I've scalloped this top edge. I've started to peel back the backing a little bit. And I just wanted to show you this first piece. And once after you do the first one, it's going to be pretty much all the same as you go through it, but I'm just going to fit it into place, and I'm going to peel back here. As you can see, I'm going to start to peel back the backing so I can get this top edge set. So I really want to make sure that I've got it fit in here really nicely. It's not hitting anything. It's not going to interfere with anything. And then I get it lined up, and then I can lay down this top edge. So now, while only about this much is actually peeled back, it's actually holding on very, very well. So what I'm going to do then is just reach in here and just slowly, and you can hear it more than you can see it because my hands are deep in the door, but I'm going to just peel off the rest of this backing all the way down till I get all the way down to the bottom and I can get it all out. So once I get this backing out, I can then press the rest of that down. I can use my roller through the inside of the door and get it all pressed down very, very nicely. Then I'm going to take the next piece and do it again, next piece, do it again, and do it again, and all the way through. It's going to be that same process, so I'm not going to show you every single piece because it really is going to be that same thing. Just a little bit of custom work to get it to fit perfectly. Start to peel the backing, lay it in very, very nicely, and get as much into the door skin as you can get. All right, so let me get all this door caught up, and then I'm going to show you what this looks like when it's done. All right, so this door is done. I also pulled the speaker here to give myself a little bit of better hand and access room to back here behind this. I got those square pieces kind of cut to shape and fit them in perfectly, as you can see all the way around. So now the entire inner door is lined with the Soundskins Classic. Looks really good. So let's go ahead and move over to our roll of Soundskins Pro, where we're going to cut our shape of our vapor barrier. Now, the other thing we're going to do is we're going to improve upon the existing design a little bit. So we're going to use the vapor barrier as a template. But as I look at this, you can see, you know, there's a groove here and we hit our posts. We can go a little bit wider and still fit in some places. Now, one place where we can go much wider, and because more barrier the better, right? So as we get up in here, as you can see, there's a lot of space where we could come all the way out in extra space, and then we can cut a circle for the speaker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the existing vapor barrier as a template, but when I get to this curve, I'm going to leave myself some extra so I can come out further all through here and have that be rolled out as well, and then I'll cut out the speaker. Okay, so let's move over and get that cut out. Okay, so if you forgive the afternoon shadows here, as you can see, this is my big roll of Soundskins Pro Plus. So it's a bigger roll, and I want to always maintain as much material and not waste material if I can help it. So I take my existing vapor barrier, lay it out as a template here right to the edge. Now the other thing we're going to do is, I mentioned a few minutes ago, we have the airbag here that actually sets back in a little bit. So I'm actually going to cut a little bit extra material in this area so I can press the Soundskins back in to make a little bit of a depression there. So just take a pencil, work your way around, and outline the existing design. Now, as I mentioned a second ago, the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to draw up like this and draw a big extra area here at the top. I'm going to fill in this entire area right here, because that's going to be the area that, like I said, I'm going to fill in around that speaker, and I'm going to improve upon this existing design. So just work my pencil around. It's really nice to be able to use this as a template, just like that. There we go. All right, so go ahead and just take a pair of good scissors or shears, and I'm going to just kind of mark where the existing one was, so I just have it for a frame of reference, like that, and then there you go. So I've got it all nice and outlined. Set that aside. Take a good pair of scissors. Go ahead and cut your way all the way around. Take this and pick it up, and we'll take it back to the door. Okay, so we're back here at the door. Forgive any afternoon shadows. Doing the best I can with the light. So this is where you're going to need to start to lay all this out, and you can see where you've got cables come up, like your Bowden cable, like your airbag cable, your wiring harness, and your other pieces through here, right? So right here. But this is the other advantage of leaving a little bit of the butyl tape behind, is that you can actually use it to hang on to the sound matting as you kind of put it in place and hang it here a little bit. As you can see, it'll kind of hang itself on the existing butyl tape, which is kind of nice. So you can lay it all out in the correct orientation and make sure that you've got a good fitment all the way through. Now over here on the far side, you can see where it's covering all my wiring harness right now, but now it's extending into all of this dead space right here that was not covered before. They didn't need a vapor barrier there because it's all metal, but we're improving upon the vapor barrier with the sound matting, which goes on metal very, very well. So take all of this, lay it all out. You can use your existing vapor barrier to find the exact little slits where you put the cable. And so for example, this one right here, you would lay in here and you'd make a very small cut through the material. You'd fish the line through and then lay this down tight so it seals around the cable. But you can get all that laid into place really, really nicely. You're gonna do that same sequential peel. So you'll take on one side, you'll peel the corner, start to adhere this down and slowly peel the backing away all the way across the door. Once it's in place, you use your roller, roll it down nicely, and then you've got a door done. And that's exactly what you're gonna do on all the rest of the doors. So let me get this hung and I'll show you what it looks like. All right, so as you can see, this inner sound skin is done. I've got the airbag back on, and it's, like I said, I gave myself a little bit of extra material, plus the stretch is enough that it just set back in there just nicely with really not pulling on the material at all. You can see where I've made the splits for the cables to come through here, here, and here. And forgive the shadows, I'm sorry. But you can see my wiring harness is out, and it's all the way around. Now, there's a couple of places where, you know, I even could have done a little bit better. I could have gone a little bit wider here on those bottom edges. I could have been a little bit deeper. I could have even cut down and around into here a little bit if I wanted to. You know, it's just an opportunity, and I could even, if I wanted to, could even take a little bit of scrap and custom cut it into that space too, if I wanted to. As long as it seals up against the other, it's almost as good. Speaker's back on. Obviously, I cut the hole out for the speaker for it to set back in nicely. But all in all, I'm really pleased. So now the inner liner is done, the vapor barrier is done. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what it's gonna be like, and forgive the mess, but let's take a look at what it's gonna be like to line all of our cabin bowl as well, because that's really all of the basic skills that you're going to do, and then you're gonna repeat it through the entire car. All right, so forgive the afternoon sun, I've got quite a bit of reflection right now, but I kind of wanted to show you a before and after on how to take the interior carpet up here in this E53 X5. Now again, every car is going to be different, but I'm just going to show you specifically in this case. So one of the very first things you're going to want to do is pull these inner pieces. These are actually held by plastic rivets, just like we saw on the door panels. So you're going to want to get your plastic trim tool underneath, and they'll pop out. It'll go all the way down. Now in this case, on the driver's side, there is one screw right here, which I'm going to turn around and I'll show you on the passenger side what it looks like when this comes apart. This piece comes off, this piece will come off, and they've got those plastic rivets set in. This will start to lift. Now, to get that off, again, you run your plastic trim tool here under the door sill, which will come out. It has plastic rivets that it often will leave behind. So here's one of them left behind right at the moment, okay? So make sure to pull those out. Now, what you're also gonna do is you're gonna pull off your B-pillar. This has two plastic rivets at the bottom, here and here. So get your plastic trim tool underneath, pry it up, and then it has hooks that set it right here at the top, and it'll feed away. You'll do the same thing on your trim here. Get your plastic trim tool underneath, pop up your door sill trim, and then lastly, use plastic trim tool to slide this cover off. And there are two 10mm plastic nuts here and here, and then this light socket will come out. And then at that point, pretty much all of your carpet is loose. Now, let me go around to the other side and show you a little bit more what it looks like as it's coming loose. All right, so now that all the door sills are off, and here I am on the passenger side to kind of show you what it looks like a little bit further apart. Now this piece, the one difference on the passenger side is that you've got a outlet at the very end. If you didn't know, you have a 12-volt outlet at the end of this carpet piece. You do, and it's plugged in right here. So unplug that, pull it out, set it aside. Same thing for the centerpiece. Your vents that come up right here, if you rock them, they'll come off because they're just pressure clipped onto the vents that come underneath the carpet. Okay, at that point, you can start to pull up on the carpet, as you can see. Now, what you're going to want to do is I will hook into this carpet and probably use like a bungee cord up through one of the loops and up and over the steering wheel or something similar to help hold this up and away, because we're going to be sliding our sound matting material all under here around this ducting underneath. Same thing here for the back. Let me show you from the back to be a little bit of a better view. So we're here in the back. Like I said, I undid the light right here. I took off those two 10mm plastic nuts, pulled the light out and unplugged it. And then this will all start to come up and come away. It's never been down before. It's going to be really, really stiff, as you can see. But the carpet here will also pull up and away enough that you can get underneath it. And that's where we're going to start to lay all of our sound matting in. I use bungee cords to secure the carpet, kind of bend it up in a way where I can work on it. And then we're going to lay material in through the footwells, front seat, back seat, and across underneath where the back seat goes. Okay, so let me go ahead and get my carpet held up a little bit so you can see it in a little bit better angle, and then I will show you what it looks like to custom fit and cut in the Soundskins Pro material underneath. Okay, so we're here on the passenger side with the carpet held up. Now, it would be nice if we could take the entire carpet out, but it goes over and under the center console, both in front of the gear shift and behind the gear shift, and so we'd have to take the entire center console out, and that's just not practical. Okay, so this is a project you can do in a day. That would be like a 2-day project. So what you want to do is just pry the carpet up as far as you can go. You can get your hand here underneath and you can kind of feel where you can gain a little bit more room and a little bit more space. But this is going to be, again, custom cutting. So cut out a section of the Soundskins Pro. You might want to vacuum. Cut out a section, and I also don't go over the top of these ducting. What you want to do is just lay down all through here, put it back as far as you can get it to go, and all of that material, and then lay it down. Do the same thing over here, cut a piece, and this is where some of your scrap is going to start to work really well, because you can take a piece of your scrap that's larger than this, cut it, and fit it into that place. Now, the other thing you could also do is you can also lay up this wall right here as well. Now, what I tend not to do is, this is your seat post on either side, right? And it's going to be the same thing in the back. I tend not to lay material here on the top surfaces where the seat post goes, because I don't want to mess with the height of that at all. I want to make sure your seat is back in the original position where it's going to be. But either side of this is fine. So let's go ahead and get that done, but then we're going to do the same, and we're going to get back underneath here and all the way back into the rear footwell. So let's get this side done, and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so the front is done, as you can see, and I pretty much try to hit every reasonable space that I can. Like I said, my trick about sliding some up here, up and underneath, which is all done, so that's all set and good to go. I cut away from the ducts. I've got pieces up into here as far as I can get them. I've got down this front barrier here. I've stayed away from the raised platforms where your seat is going to bolt down. I don't want to interfere with how your seats work. That's a safety issue, right? So make sure that that's all set. I've got down the front here, and I've got up this lip here, closing this box in really nicely right here. So, and then, you know, just a matter of being meticulous, and no one will ever know but me. I always try to keep the orientation of my matting the same direction. Obviously, I had to change here with it up these vertical surfaces, but I always try to lay it down the same direction, so it reads the same way. So as I go across, it's going to be the same way. Okay, so let's go ahead and move into the back. So we're going to, same thing, we're going to take the carpet, we're going to peel it up. We'll take this section underneath the seat here. Then we'll take the passenger footwell. I'll show you some bits and pieces of that, and then we'll move to the platform underneath the back seat, which will be some of the biggest contiguous pieces across the back. All right, y'all, let's go ahead and get caught up here. So what we've got is, you can see that middle section is done, and I went ahead and measured that. It's 10 inches across, and this back footwell section is 24 inches across, including, so I wanted to have it in one contiguous piece. So even though I was going to cut that section out right there to meet that curve, I went ahead and cut a solid 24-inch piece. That way I could also cut the same for the other side, and that would make it faster when I get over to the other side. Now, all I need to do now, of course, is across that, the wall right there. Don't forget you've got the light, but then in addition, we've got this large seat base area, and these will be the largest pieces I can put across. And I will also cut around. I'll cut circles. You can see those rubber discs. That's where your low pressure fuel pumps are. Not the big metal piece, but the rubber in the center. I'll just cut circles around that to make sure that they can stick up and through the sound matting. Now, the other thing I tend to do is I also leave space around these posts for your seat base, because I find that it can cause a little bit of problem for clearance with the seat base. So as you can see, we're more than halfway done on this side. All we need to do is do the seat base across. We'll cut around the seat belts. But by now, when you get to this point, you've got the idea, and just laying in the pieces and cutting around your obstacles to get the biggest contiguous pieces in that you can possibly get. Okay, so let's go ahead and get that wall, the foot wall right there, and then the seat base here, and then we'll be all done on this side. Okay, so pretty much this side is all done, as you can see. So along the footwell here, this footwell wall, that was an 8-inch piece that ran all the way to the middle. This is a 22-inch wide piece. And again, you do that trick, like for example, you want to cut out a circle, you cut a line down to it, you cut around and then fit it around the piece. The same thing here around the belt buckle. And as you can see, it went about 3/4 of the distance, so it'll be 22 inches wide, but it won't be quite as tall on the far side. Don't forget the cutout for the seatbelt buckle on that side that we undid so we could get the seat base out. But all in all, I mean, as you can see, that's what it takes to do a door. This is what it takes to do an entire side, and you're just going to repeat and do on the other side. You're going to do the exact same thing. And if in some of the places where you could use template links and you've duplicated them, then it's going to go much faster because you already have the sizes that you need to cut through it. You should also be getting faster and working with the material and how to cut around circles. So at this point, if you haven't done the rest of your doors, go ahead and finish those up. Go ahead and finish up the floor. And then we'll also take a look at the back a little bit because we don't want to have any extra bare metal there. Of course, we've got the spare tire and some other things here in this particular X5 that might be in that space. So we'll make an evaluation of how we want to use that space and soundskin it off. But also, then we'll also be looking to put it all back together. Now, it's going to be the exact same thing. So in this case, you want to lay the carpet down. Don't forget to put your vents back in. And all of these pieces are going to fit back together as you took them apart. So I'm going to take this side down and go do the other side, but we're getting close to seeing how you can do the entire process and have this done for yourself. All right, so one last thing as we kind of go almost in reverse order from stage 3+ to back to stage 1. Back with the sound rings. The one thing we don't want to forget before we button the doors up, and I'm looking at the driver's side door right now, are our sound rings kit. So these speakers in this X5 already have some foam around that's supposed to meld up against the door card, right, to seal it away. Now, this particular car is 20 years old. This foam is pretty flattened and there's not much left out of it. Now, also a lot of cars, for example, my M2C didn't really have it at all. So I made sure to put the foam rings all the way around to help seal the speaker against the door card. It helps push all of that sound forward. In addition, you want to put the pad, the little square pad that comes from the sound rings kit, and put that back behind the speaker to help push all of that sound forward. Okay, so in this case, you just want to take one of these long strips of this corrugated foam ring and then just measure it all the way around. Make sure that it has a good full ring on it. Now, obviously it's going to stick out quite a bit from what's here now, but this foam is so soft and so squishy. I mean, you can squish it all the way down to almost nothing with very little pressure, as you can see. So I don't feel it's going to have any problem whatsoever compressing down to a good space to seal up against the door card. So just measure it, pull the extra tape off, put the ring all the way around, okay? So if you've done this in the same order that I have, where you've done the interior, you've done the doors, so go ahead and finish up and work through all the rest if you haven't. And the one last thing we're going to take a look at here in just a second is we're going to go back and look at the trunk space and see where we can add Soundskins Pro into the trunk space to help deaden that out around the spare tire. So let's go check that in a second, but make sure to not forget your sound rings. All right, y'all, so here we are looking at the back trunk area. And you know, I've been giving this a lot of thought. I really thought about matting all of this off, but there's enough structure in here that I think that the places where I can get to sheet metal are really not going to make that much difference. I also think that if I have matting under where the tire is going to sit here, especially on this frame, here in this X5, it's going to actually tear the matting up, which isn't going to do any good. So in this case, and this is where I want to encourage you as you take a look at your own car, if you want to do the trunk area, I highly recommend it. But actually in this case, I don't think I'm going to. Now, I didn't want to just leave it out and have you like, hey, wait a second, you said you were going to do the trunk area. But as I look at this very, very closely, you know, plastic structures here are not going to come up easily. All of this bracing for the battery and around that, I'm not sure I want to have matting around that. And then the sheet metal that is here, I don't think I'm going to make that much of a difference. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that out. All right, y'all, so putting your car back together is just the reverse of what you did before and taking it out. So just a quick review. Now, remember when you lay those carpet pieces back down in, you want to put your back seat bench in. Go ahead and lay the back seat footwell carpets down and smooth. Now, what I also found with a little bit of the sound matting in, I usually get in and kind of press on the carpets to make sure that they lay all back down in the proper places. Same thing, you've got, if you pull those two carpet pieces here and here down the transmission wall, go ahead and put those back in. Don't forget the screw back in the corner. You can lay this front carpet back down. Don't forget that those heating ducts that go back to the back seats that you just wiggle to take them out, you put them back in. And then you can put your back seat or put your seats back in. Now, quick thing on this, when you do this, make sure to get this plug set back up and plug it in correctly here. Now, in the E53 X5s, the plug here underneath the seat, because there's the plug that comes up and out of the carpet, remember, that you've been working with and keeping out of the way the whole time. Now, the seat itself, the plug receptacle in the seat is very famous for having the plugs back out of the harness that it fits into. So there's 4 plugs in there. Make sure that when you put the plug from the wiring harness out of the car back in, that you didn't push any of those back, or things like your steering wheel or your heated seats may not work, or it may not go up and down properly. Just double check that on both sides. Okay, so put it all back together. Door cards are the same way. When you put your door cards back on, remember that you just kind of hold them up. You plug everything back in, all of your switches. You put those horseshoe collar plugs back in for all of your switches and the windows. You snap your Bowden cable here on the door pull back on, and then you just press it up into place. You've got that row of top clips across the top. You press the door into place over your locking pin. And then once that hung into place, you can look down all of your edges to make sure your nylon pins are all straight, because they will mash if they're not lined up, right? And then your door card won't press back in properly. Okay, so once that's all done, you can just smack it with your hand and smack it back into place. You can see a couple of things in my door card because I took the car out for a test drive. But you get your door card back on, you put your screw in, that's here, that's behind this cover right here, behind this cover here, behind the cover down below there, put those all back in. You can put your door trim back on, and you're all done. And it's gonna be the same all the way around for the rest of the car. Okay, but put everything back together. If you took the back apart, go ahead and put it back together as far as in the spare tire area like I did. Obviously, I've already reconnected my battery and done all of that. But as you can tell, it's just a reverse order of putting it back together and how you took it apart. Once that's all done, make sure to take it out for a test drive, make sure everything works properly like I've already done, and you should be good to go. All right, y'all, so all done. Car's put back together, and I went out and took it for a test drive. And man, the difference is amazing. This Stage 3 Plus makes a huge difference. Because, you know, I did all the way up to the Stage 2 in my M2C, and the difference that it made. So I got a chance to take my sound gauge back out with me. Now, so this particular car at idle was about 55 decibels. Now, at idle now, sitting in the same location here in the garage, it's at 45 decibels. That's a full 10 decibel drop, and that is a huge difference. That is a massive difference. It is so much quieter, and really was quite shocking when I took it out onto the road, and it's down 9 decibels total. It went from an average of about 71 decibels up on the freeway with other traffic to 62 decibels. And it's really amazing, candidly. Cars come up right beside you and you don't hear them until you hear them through the glass itself. And then the sound system in this car has been upgraded very, very significantly from the original speakers, and that difference as well. Just the same sort of improvements that I saw in the M2C, I also hear here as well. And it really is an amazing difference. So while, as you can tell, this is a very detailed project, and doing something of this size will take a fair amount of time, but the tools aren't hard or complicated, and the work itself isn't hard and complicated. This is a great thing to do maybe on a colder winter day, like as you can see me doing. So I highly recommend it. Thank you so much to Soundskins for this project. What an amazing thing to do, and I highly recommend this. If you're changing the speakers in your car, if you're doing this work anyway, do at least a Stage 2. I mean, sure, the Stage 3 is definitely one step beyond if you do into the cabin bowl, and a Stage 3 Plus where I'm lining the Soundskins Classic on the doors. But in this car, that really made the difference. And getting a chance to take it out and drive it around, it is night and day difference. If you have an especially really loud car like a Jeep or some of those other trucks, I don't know why you wouldn't do this. So hey, thank you so much to Soundskins for making such a fantastic product that's so easy to work with. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Please click subscribe and the little alarm bell. It makes a huge difference to my channel and I'd really appreciate it. And I'll see you soon on my next project.